A lot of this for research purposes only. No, sure, I'm curious like anyone else, Hallie.
Honey, I'm going to that website big time.
Right. So I looked at this stuff. These women are all mugging for the camera. They all know they're on video because this stuff was so big and bulky, you could not miss it in the living room of Crane's apartment. The stuff looked like it fell off a Soyuz space capsule. I mean, it really did. It's huge and bulky, and the TV set was actually turned to the couch where all the shenanigans was going on, and women could see themselves performing, and they were mugging for the camera. I never saw evidence of anybody videotaped without their consent. Now, the only thing that would fly in the face of that is whether some of these women were too drunk to know the difference. That is possible.
Or
in
drugged.
some of these cases.
Right, or drugged. Okay, so you really you refound the evidence. You have the DNA tested because it's a long time between early DNA and this. This is way after OJ and what happened. And then you did something that I think was kind of interesting. So you decided to have this great reveal. Yes,
because this started as a television story. I work for Fox 10 Phoenix and have for many, many years, 24 years, I think now. We were working on a television story, and about a quarter of the way into it, I turned to my photographer, Joe Tillman, and I said, Joe, this has got to be a book, man. There is so much going on. I cannot possibly put this all in a television story. And that's where the book kind of started from. And yes, the only way, Hallie, and it's cheesy. I know it sounds cheesy, and we try to do it with some dignity. But I thought when we get the test results back from Bodie Selmark Forensics, which is one of the best labs in the world for this kind of stuff. They did the testing on JonBenet Ramsey, on O.J. Simpson, on Bob Crane early on. I thought, we can't pull all of these people together and individually, one by one, tell them the results and interview them without it leaking out. It's going to leak out. And I thought, well, it kind of undermines our story and all the work if it gets leaked out to the press at large before we ever run the story. The only way I could see to do this was to assemble everybody on one evening, which we did. The prosecutor, Rick Romley, the investigator, Barry Vassell, Bob Crane Jr., John Carpenter's attorney, Stephen Avila in California, and the jury foreman, Michael Lake. We assembled them all in the studio and revealed the results to them and to the world that one night. The danger in that, of course, and I talk about it in the book, would people think that this was some kind of Maury Povich stunt, right? That
or Geraldo.
And I have to tell you, I take full credit, good or bad. I went to my news director. I said, I've got an idea. I don't know what you think. I said, I can't come up with any other way that we can do this without it leaking out, except revealing it live on television. Well, he loved it. He loved the idea.
Oh, well, sure. Why not? Yeah.
It's actually not crazy about it, even though I'd come up with the idea. But I couldn't come up with another way to do it. I couldn't come up with another way.
And then there was the big reveal.
Yes.
Should we talk about the big reveal, or should we leave it?
No, we could talk about it. It was shocking. It was shocking. And everyone connected to the case expected that this was going to be Bob Crane's blood in John Carpenter's car, case closed. Now, I'll tell you something. I felt so strongly about this that the working title of the book as I was writing it was The Bob Crane Murder, Case Closed. I felt that strongly that that's what we were going to get. That is not what we got. We got DNA from an unknown male in that car and a secondary profile too degraded to reach any conclusions. Now, we've since looked at that a couple of times with some other experts, and given the alleles that are present in that DNA, that's not Bob Crane either. So here we are with the idea that the blood is from Bob Crane, and we are getting nothing from Bob Crane. And that is really troubling. And I get into this in the book in depth in Who Killed Bob Crane, what may be going on and why, because this is really added to the mystery of this whole murder case. And Bob Crane's son, he openly gasped on TV when we revealed this because he was stunned. He thought, as I did, this is going to be his dad's blood in John Carpenter's car, case closed. And it just didn't come out that way.
It's amazing. So is a case like this solvable?
At this point, and the reason that the subtitle of the book is The Final Close-Up, that is not just a throwaway line. This is the last close-up forensically of this case. because to do this final round of testing, there was so little left that they had to consume everything that was left. There is no other DNA to test. We have consumed it all with this final test. That's why it's called the final close-up.
Okay, you still believe that Carpenter did it?
Well, I have no other great theory. You're left with an absence of other possibilities. You don't have any other real strong evidence leading to someone else. But I'll tell you, there are a host of people out there at the zenith of Bob Crane's sexual addiction. Husbands, boyfriends, maybe even women who might have wanted their videotapes back, who might have been angry that this was going on. You can imagine. I mean, there'd be a pretty deep bench of suspects and people out there who were probably not happy with Bob Crane.
You went into this, the 18-year-old kid who is a big fan of Bob Crane, and then you get into it later, and you meet the son. I'm sure he endeared himself to you. It sounds like you guys have a pretty good relationship.
He is a wonderful guy. I really like Bob Jr. a lot. He's a really great guy.
And then there's this, and you go through all of this. At the end of the day, what are you thinking about Bob Crane?
I'll tell you, it's very similar to how the investigators feel about it. It's tough to watch Hogan's Heroes now and not think about this because obviously, with among the evidence that I've seen are horrific pictures of the murder, pictures of his autopsy, a lot of this stuff in the book, Who Killed Bob Crane. It's hard to watch it the same way. I mean, I'm not looking at it anymore through the innocent eyes of an 18-year-old entertained by a really clever, glib, funny, sharp, quick-witted celebrity anymore. This is a guy who was definitely flawed. But we all have flaws, and it doesn't mean that you deserve to be murdered. And there's evidence that Bob Crane may have been trying to turn his life around toward the end. He was almost 50 years old. He was 2 weeks shy of turning 50 when he was murdered. And there's evidence that he was reflecting pretty heavily on where he was in his life. And, that he might have been turning the corner a little bit. It's hard to prove because the shenanigans continued into Scottsdale. So I'm not sure that he had made that turn yet, but he might have been approaching the corner at least.
And one might say, knowing who he was and what he had been doing, was he any better than the killer in a way? Nobody deserves to get killed. Don't misunderstand me. But this is a guy who's very troubled. There's a quote that I just thought was so fitting. I don't smoke, he said. I don't drink. 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Well, you got to give him points for honesty,
right?
At least.
No,
right?
Absolutely. But I guess he never named the truth about himself, and he was clearly a dark guy fighting a whole lot of demons.
Yeah, I think with the sexual addiction, and I think it was probably a sexual addiction. I don't think there's any doubt about it. He filled up most of the empty space in his life with betting women. And I think he was videotaping it so that he would have a catalog of all of his escapades that he could reflect on later in life, have his own private pornographic stash, kind of, remember when, remember her. It would catalog it. I think that might have been what was driving a little bit of this, because I think Crane was terribly concerned that he might not be wanted as he got older, that, the Hogan star would fade and the public might not want him anymore. And I think that worried him terribly. I really do.
I've been speaking with John Hook, author of Who Killed Bob Crane, with a foreword by Robert Crane, Jr. For more information, visit whokilledbobcrane.com. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show, a production of Resec, LLC. The Halli Casser-Jayne Show posts new podcasts Wednesdays, 3 p.m. Eastern. Visit hallicasserjayne.com.